All right, good afternoon. Thank you everyone for joining us today. This is the Seasonal Sales Tax Information Forum. This will be on the November ballot and is also known as the Law Enforcement Retail Activities Tax. This forum is meant to be information sharing venue for our members and anyone interested. All of the questions that we will be asking today have been submitted by the Chamber Government Affairs Committee and our general membership. And I'm very excited to have our panelists in studio with me. We have Commissioner Dan DeYoung and also Sheriff Dave Daniel. Thank you for joining us. So we have received a lot of questions, so we're going to try and get through these questions as quickly as possible. So we're going to start in right now. So our first question is going to be, how much revenue would the sales tax generate and how will it be divided among stakeholders?
Sheriff, I'll go ahead and start this off. We had an estimate done, a potential sales tax base for Josephine County. It was a preliminary working draft, and it was done by a person up in the Capitol who keeps an eye on this stuff, retail sales for county by county. And we were using, at the beginning of this, I was using $10 million is what it might raise in that 6-month period, total revenue. And I based that off of the 2% sales tax the city wanted to do a couple of years ago, was going to get about $8.5 million. But that was in 2015. We've had some growth since then. And so what I figured out is, and it was 2%, not 3%. What came back, the retail sales tax, which excludes groceries, pharmaceuticals, tobacco, gasoline, motor vehicles above $2,000. And it was a full year. This gentleman came up with roughly $40 million for a full year. So he brought that in half to $20 million for the 6-month period. And then he was a little more conservative because he says, I can't guarantee that. Of course, we can't guarantee any of it until we have a track record. But he rounded it off to roughly $18 million. And his little caveat is it includes some shifting of purchases on either end of the taxable period. He was taking into consideration the 6-month period. So that's what we've been using. And of course, we're just using this for arithmetic. It's probably as close a guess as we could get. It may be more, it may be slightly less. And then you asked me how it would be divided up. And the program is, it would be divided up. We take the total population of Josephine County, because the tax that's collected in Josephine County stays in Josephine County. This does not go to the state and then they trickle some back to us. This is going to stay here in its entirety. So we figured probably the only real true way to do this, because all the population of Josephine County is going to be paying into this at 3%, because it is a sales tax locally also, as plus catching the tourist trade and some of the other things. But it would be to do that by population. So we took the incorporated city of Cave Junction. They are roughly 2.4% of the population. And so we collected $18 million just for the sake of coming off of this estimate, and 2.4% of the population should get 2.4% of the take. So their revenue stream would be roughly in the neighborhood of $400,000 for the city of Cave Junction. Now, they don't have a police force because, of course, they don't have a revenue stream. They right now purchased one resident deputy from the sheriff. And if they chose not to have, it's up to the city council of the incorporated city of Cave Junction. They decided not to have their own police force. They could contract take their $400,000 and give it to Sheriff Daniel, and he could say, okay, that's going to buy you 3 deputies instead of 1, or so on and so forth. That's up to their city council. Get to the city of Grants Pass. They're 44%, roughly 44% of the population of Josephine County. So their 44% of 18 million comes out to roughly $8 million. That has to be used for law enforcement within the city of Grants Pass. Now, they have elected well, we'll get into that later on, because they've made some decisions since this came out that they're going to reduce their property tax levy by $1. They're going to take it from $1.79 down to 79 cents for the people within the incorporated city of Grants Pass. The rest of that 5%, of course, stays with the merchant for doing the calculations. 5% of the 3% that they collect will stay with the merchants. If you take 5% of the 18 million, that's $900,000 that will stay locally with the merchant. So with that, the remaining goes right to the Sheriff Daniels and law enforcement for the county. Now, there is other entities in that, and I'll let Sheriff explain. However, the people that basically have a hook in the water, and just kind of take that from here. But that's kind of how it is. You'll see how that's going to be lined out. And we thought, because we had people, well, all the work is done, all the taxes are collected in the city, we should get more. Well, who's paying the taxes? It's the county residents coming into the city and shopping here. Our population goes up exponentially during the day when people come to town to shop. So I think the population side of it, and if we have growth either way, any direction we have, I think that that can be calculated really fast. Did that answer your question, Josie?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Sheriff, if you want to kind of go on as to what all is going to be involved in your budget, that'd be great.
Yeah, Josie, I think you have I think question number 3 on the list here is directed towards me. If you want to read that one off.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and move to that one. So would the sales tax revenue stabilize or increase the sheriff patrol service?
It would absolutely increase patrol service, and it would absolutely stabilize our patrol services, keeping in mind that out of the revenue from the tax would be 5% of that would go into a reserve fund. And
I think it's really 7 now. It's what the excuse me, I don't mean to correct you, but I think item D in the ordinance itself, we bumped that to 7%.
Oh, did you? Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. I didn't realize that. So thank you, Commissioner. 7%. To be accurate, thanks for the correction. And so that creates a reserve fund for us. So we talk about the ebb and flow of economics and potential inflation, deflation, the up and down of our economy, creates a foundation for us. And not only would the 7% create a kind of a stable foundation for us, please keep in mind that it's going to take 3 to 5 years for as we've already seen since 2017, when the juvenile detention and our corrections levy passed. It's taken that amount of time for me to build to the organization we have today. And so there will also be a foundation that has to go into that reserve fund as well. So I anticipate being several million, if not more, dollars into a reserve fund that keeps us very stable. Estimating at $10 million, if that is what the sheriff's office were provided. We're currently staffed with 18 FTEs on our patrol division. We had to disband our detectives division, unfortunately, due to budget cuts this year. And again, thank you to the commissioners for scraping and clawing as much as they did to keep us where we're at. We didn't have to do layoffs, thank goodness, because we did a hiring freeze and kind of braced ourselves for this day. It would add basically 22 positions to the sheriff's office. That would be, I would probably most likely take 4 or 5 of those 22 positions. We'll say 5, and I would create our detectives division. That would drop us down with 2 more for a total of, say, 7 out of the patrol division of the funding that I would add to a records division, so we can increase our hours of service. So when people call, they can actually get a voice on the phone, a human being. That leaves us basically with 15 additional patrol onto the 18 that we currently have. So almost double. And that would provide 24/7 service to Josephine County. You would have a team of between 6 and 8 at any one given time, 24/7 within Josephine County, providing service. That is, I don't know of a time in history in Josephine County that's ever taken place. It's still probably not the industry standard. We're still a little bit low, but I guarantee you I can adequately provide service to Josephine County with those numbers. So to answer your question, yes, it would absolutely stabilize us and take us to a place that is very positive and very good.
Great, thank you. So on to the next question. How will local, small and large businesses collect the tax, and how will the county enforce the collection?
Local small business, large businesses, most of them have what we call a POS program for calculating, for the cash register and whatnot. But there's a lot of smaller businesses that don't have a POS sale. Point of sale is basically what it is. It's an accounting program. Talking to some of the larger, like the grocers and whatnot, it's no big deal to them. We're only one of 3 states that don't have a sales tax of statewide sales tax or anything like that. But for the rest of them, it's just, it's in the program. You just type it in, away you go. I'm not an accountant, so I can't verify that, but I'm told it is relatively simple. I've had some smaller businesses, in fact, one out in the Williams area, and she says, what do I have to do? I mean, do I have to go through my whole inventory? And I don't know what I'm going to do with this thing, and I think there will be a learning curve to this. If it were to pass in November, the tax does not kick in until for 5 months later. And the first reporting period isn't for a year after that until March of 2024 would be your first reporting to do this. Now, and you ask, I think the how will the county enforce the collection? I'm looking at this. My model would be a hotel motel tax that the city has with transient lodging tax, and transient lodging tax is done all over the state of Oregon. Some counties have it, some counties don't. We don't have countywide. We don't have a transient lodging tax that the city grants past us. And basically, the motels, it's the reporting period. They know that it's there. There's an ordinance for it. They get a deal in the mail. Their accountant says this is what we turn in, and this, is what we have. Way we have to do it. There is still, and I understand this because I've lived here my whole life, but there's a cash society in all, it's not just in Josephine County, there's a cash society all across the United States. And, is the library police going to come in and break down your business? Because, and I use the analogy of cutting hair in the back room for $20 cash. I don't think that's any big deal, because you're going to take that $20 and go spend it on a taxable item at one of the other stores. So I think it pretty well follows a business license type of a thing, and it'll go out to all business licenses, and this is what the reporting will be. Is it going to hurt? I can't do it. We don't do it. No change that comes about is going to be easy to swallow right off the bat. And I had a conversation with a person yesterday, and they said, well, gee, this is Oregon, we're going to be the first in Oregon. And I said, well, we're kind of going to be the first in Oregon. This is tip of the spear stuff in Oregon. Of course, historically, it's never had a sales tax. There are sales taxes in other municipalities across Oregon. Ashland, our neighbor to the south, is one of them. But one of the things is that we enjoy a very low property tax here in Josephine County. And we also enjoy no sales tax in Josephine County. Now, other places, I can get up to Sherman County, which it's their cost per thousand is $8 a thousand, because they have a very small population and a pretty good nut to crack, and that's just the way it pencils out. But here, we still enjoy the small property tax. We're trying to keep it that way. Because if we don't tax it, we have a nut to crack in order to fund law enforcement. I think law enforcement is a pretty basic requirement for civilized society. And I think that law enforcement, if we can't do it when property tax has been unpopular time and time again. And this was kind of a new wrinkle. And, you'd hear people talk, and a little bit of sales tax, a little bit of income tax, and a little bit of property tax seems to be that 3-legged stool. And I think 3% half a year is a pretty small ask. And with it going strictly to law enforcement, we have the need, and the timing is paramount. because we're coming up against some deadlines that I think Sheriff will expound on a little bit later. But that's I'm hoping that that's where the chamber could step in and small business out of the college. They have a small business folks out there, and you've got time to say how can my business do this transition. And I think the chamber would be that'd be right up your alley, providing help for your members to make the transition. I know it's going to not be easy in a lot of cases, but in other cases like big box stores, and Amazon, it's another one. It's just a daily business. You just tell them what your ordinance is and they abide by it. I hope that answered your question, Josie.
Yes, and this kind of moves on to the next two questions on collecting the tax. And these are some challenges we're hearing from the business community. Why did the county make the sales tax implementation in the middle of the month on April 15th and October 15th? This is a challenge for lots of our businesses, especially if they're using the accrual counting system.
Okay, I'll go ahead and take that. The sales tax will be collected on the internet sales on Amazon. We called Amazon to find out what their requirement was. And they said, you just send it to us. And I think it goes zip code to zip code, maybe even as close as address to address to see if you're in Josephine County and the tax is applicable. But they do this all day, every day, and it's not a big problem with the internet sales. And the item number 8, that question came up. In fact, it was one of the collector businesses at Southern Oregon Sanitation. Trent came in and he said, my books don't work 15th to 15th. And I just reverted back to the estimate sheet that we have here and it says at the bottom, include some shifting of purchases on either end of the taxable period. And I said, why not just move your reporting period back? Just move it back to April 1st through October 1st. It's still 6-month reporting, and that would make an easy shift. And if that works for you, that may be something that the 3-board panel that's going to be established with this. It has a representative from City of Cave Junction, City of Grass Pass, and Josephine County. That they could make that determination and make that change to this ordinance really fast. And that would probably help out a lot in a lot of the businesses where they're not calculating daily, they're calculating month to month. So that was a very good question, and I think that's an easy one to answer. That can happen pretty darn easy.
Okay, great, thank you. And another challenge businesses would face is when they are only collecting a tax half the year and then half the year not. And also they're only collecting the tax on the first 2,000 purchase. Can you kind of explain that?
We wanted to consider, and I think it was brought up at one of the city, I did a 1-on-1 with, 3-on-1 actually with their city councilors. And one thing the city said is just, why don't we make it year round? And to be quite honest with you, when the tourist season ends here and a lot of the commerce that summer brings here ends, in the agricultural fields and so on and so forth. I would like to give the locals, the people that live here, some tax relief. Even if it's for 6 months out of the year, they get some tax relief and possibility that if you philosophically can't spend 3% or won't spend 3%, that there's the opportunity for our businesses. You'd move your buying power into the middle of winter when basically our merchants are changing. I guess you call it trading dollars back and forth amongst ourselves. That would give some tax relief to locals. It was brought up at one of our forums that, well, what about if you just had the driver's license and you present a driver's license from Josephine County and you're tax exempt and so on and so forth. We still have a nut to crack. We can't lose sight of what this is going to generate. And the purpose of this whole conversation is law enforcement and funding law enforcement. And at the same time, giving maybe a little bit of relief to locals and then keeping it as low as possible. Now, the $2,000 purchases, that's pretty easy to calculate when you have a point of sale. It's on one invoice. If you go down, let's say to Home Depot, and you buy a $4,000 lawnmower, and when you ring that up, it's going to go to $60 and stop. And so I think that's fairly easy to do. Here again, I'm not an accountant. And I'm not a computer whiz. So, please take this. I'm not trying to tell you how it's done, because that's one thing we just wanted to consider. We looked into it for the larger purchases, and well, gee, would I go to Medford and do a purchase? And you got to just weigh that $60. The $60 locally is going to go towards an investment in your own safety in your own county. I'd really hesitate to go next door unless it was just egregious how much you're going to save just because they sell in bigger lots or whatever. But that's just competition, and I'm not trying to treat competition lightly, because 3% is still 3%, and there are certain businesses that operate on very small margins. But this is a pass-through. When your business charges the 3% to your customer, it is a pass-through. You are collecting that tax, and then the customer is actually paying the tax, and then you're collecting it, sending it on to the county. So, here again, I think there's a learning curve. I'm not saying there will not be a learning curve. And this is a very good question that I've got some generalities, but until you sit down with your tax preparer and your accountant and your program, I think it really depends on your computer program too, how it shapes up.
Great, thank you. Our next question is, who will be exempt from this tax and why?
Well, do you have that, Sheriff? I've got, let me see if I can find it. I'll find it right in the ordinance itself, because we passed this ordinance last Wednesday.
Are you talking what items are exempt?
Well, mostly like in the ordinance, it has a full list of items that are exempt that will not be taxed. Which
let me start off with,
Commissioner
DeYoung, you can chime in, but we can start off with groceries. Right now, the SNAP program, which is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, it's automated already in say at Winco, and they're already doing that due to the commercial tax that's already taken place in the state of Oregon. So you go down and buy a pound of hamburger. It's food that's made for you to take home, and those groceries are not going to be taxed. Now, if you scan the barcode and there's some paper plates on there, you're going to see a tax on those type of items. But groceries are exempt, and that's just one. I know medication is exempt. I know fuel and gas tax is exempt. The state already has their fingers in on that, which is why we can't. And then alcohol, nicotine, tobacco products are also exempt, because the state has their fingers in on that. You look at vehicles, small vehicles, trucks, SUVs, cars are also exempt from the tax. Commissioner DeYoung, did you find the rest of the list there?
Yeah, I'll just go right down through it. And as the sheriff mentioned, groceries. The second on it is, then these are in ordinance. And when I asked somebody, they said, well, what makes this stick? And I said, the fact that the Board of County Commissioners put this in the form of an ordinance, and it's passed it, and it's been adopted, it becomes law. That takes that out of our hands as a board, in case somebody else comes in here and decides they want to rewrite this as they want to. The ordinance sticks until another ordinance replaces it. So it's a pretty healthy process there. And it really casts this in stone for the time being. Prescription groceries, these are all exempt items. Groceries, prescription medicine, any interest in real property, including a fee estate, a rental or leasehold interest, and appreciation of value is all exempt. Internet access is exempt. Telephone exchange access or other telephone services is exempt. Motor vehicle fuel is exempt. It's already taxed by the state. Transient lodging is exempt. New light duty motor vehicles are exempt. Cigarettes and tobacco products and others other than cigarettes, which is also taxed by the state, feds, exempt. Lottery tickets or shares of the Oregon State Lottery is exempt. Alcoholic liquor is exempt. The new one that we're going to decide on at this psilocybin products and services, which is those two items are going to be on the ballot this November. Marijuana items addressed by Josephine County Code number 3.25. And marijuana, of course, all taxes on marijuana go through the state. That's a state. Investment holdings, which include but are not limited to precious metals. So if you're dealing in coins and gold and silver, stocks, commodities, and annuities, whether new or existing, so a grandfather in there. Outright gifts, meaning the voluntary transfer of products or provision of services to another participant without compensation. So you're doing a favor, it's not taxable. Public utilities identified by ORS 757-005 and any expenses included on a utility bill issued by the municipality. As you see on City Grants Pass, you've got those things in there. Conversions that are excluded from taxation by state or federal law. So there's a lot of little bitty stuff in there too, but it's hitting, I think. And one thing that I did look up, we had how did the other 50 states tax? What's their property tax? And I've got a graph around here, and I basically took a look at Washington and Oregon, which I think a lot of our people moving here are used to Washington and Oregon, and kind of mimic what they do, because Washington, Oregon, and California, Oregon doesn't have a sales tax, but Washington and California do. And we are in the same shaded area with our tax in Josephine County as the other two that Washington and California would do. So it's been done elsewhere. I didn't want to make this more confusing than not.
Mm-hmm. And I know lots of them are already taxed by the state, but for example, for the new light duty motor vehicles, why are they exempt?
That's just what came up, and I think Wally, I don't think he's in on this conversation, but I don't know why they were exempt, but I think it's more commercial side of it. Probably 1 ton and up.
Yeah, I believe the state already has a tax in there established already.
That could be true. I can't answer that. Well, and that may be something they added to, their tax may come through motor vehicle registration. That that part I don't know about. But this
list came from legislative council up in Salem.
Oh, okay.
What we can and cannot do.
Perfect. Thank you. So we've been receiving quite a few questions from nonprofits if they would be taxed, especially on any fundraiser events they would host, especially if they're selling tickets. Would that be taxed?
That is a good question. And I would venture to say no, because we're a very philanthropic community. I will have to get back with you on that one.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that either.
I can't answer it right now. So I'll make sure you get back you can get to your constituents on that one. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And we do there's a question from the audience kind of clarifying that yes, groceries are exempt, but they wanted to know about essentials such as diapers, formula, and women's products. Would those all be taxed?
Do you have anything on that, Sheriff?
I don't know 100%, but I think they would be. I don't know about formula. That's food. That's groceries for home use. Groceries. Well, by definition, and I actually could look it up. I have it actually here in front of me. But it's food commodities, items for home use. So I imagine, yes, those probably would be taxed.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I think, Josie, I think we can go to the grocers, that do this for Washington and California and see how they pen that out. So we would have some guidelines, because I think, when you get to your grocers, they're going to be using the same program, I'm assuming, that California and Washington would be using. So we'll get back to you on that one to clarify that. That sounds
the Oregon Department of Revenue basically defines groceries, food and beverages purchased for home consumption is really the definition of groceries. Outside of that, I believe that would fall under the tax. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So if the sales tax does pass, would the ordinance be able to be changed after the fact? and how would a change be implemented? And I
It
know
could be changed. It could be changed after the fact, but that would have to go through initiative petition. This is an ordinance that goes to the voters. It cannot be adjusted. It cannot be changed outside of voter citizen approval. And so that's the very straightforward answer to that. It has to be done by the citizens. Cannot be raised, cannot be lowered without the citizens say so.
Great, thank you. And Sheriff Dave Daniel, this is probably going to be for you too. Can you explain the increase in cost for sheriff patrols year over year for the past 8 years? The increase is significantly more than what was previously communicated as needed in 2015 and 2016. Have costs really gone up that much?
Yes, the answer to that question is twofold. One is it's not totally that the costs have gone up, which they have. It's also the fact that our revenue has gone down. The federal government is no longer providing us with the amount of funding that we've had, and that's very identifiable on a graph that I have. And so that's going down, which is in turn really driving this need that we don't have the support from the federal government. But yes, the cost is going up. I'm budgeted for $70,000 extra in fuel this year. Healthcare, benefits, wages, vehicle prices, uniforms, all of those things have driven, this increase. I'm not the only one that is facing that. Obviously, every business is facing that. You've seen the price of food gone up over the past, 3 years dramatically. So it's really kind of a widespread thing. But yes, the prices have gone up, and it costs more to do business today than it did 2 years ago.
All right, great, thank you. So how many employees will the county hire to manage the sales tax, and how will those positions be funded?
The money collected will go directly, and I'll use here again, I'm going to use the city's transient room tax, transient lodging tax as somewhat of an example. The hotels and motels send a check directly to the finance department in the city of Grants Pass, and then it's just part of their daily business to do this. In our instance, what it would do, it would go down to Eve down in the Josephine County Tax Collection Department. And basically, Eve, when I talked to her, she says she's our tax collector, revenue officer, and she's had an open FTE, full-time employee. She's had one of those open in her budget for a couple of years now. And she said she would be able to devote that one person, hire that one person, so it wouldn't be an increase to her budget. And that person would basically take care of this. Now, the reporting is only going to come in once a year. And so that's when, that person's going to be really busy for probably a month or so, just like at tax time. Our tax situation down there, our tax crew really gets busy for a short period of time. And so that's already been funded. I think keeping it local, if you were to do this at the state level, there's a whole other level of government that you would have to fund. But this one here is relatively simple. And so I'm going to say one full-time employee, one full FTE, and that person has already been funded. It's already in the budget. So
will there be any administrative costs at all coming from the sales tax?
Not from our end, no.
No, it has to go to law enforcement only.
Okay, great. So if a business, you kind of talked about that businesses would only be sending in the taxes once a year. If they choose to, can they send it in quarterly or monthly?
Yes, the requirement is once a year, but it's just like I'm going to look at it kind of like income tax. My accountant is constantly badgering me to pay quarterly, and because I think it's easier for all involved. And to be quite honest with you, it's probably a lot easier for me to fill out a check for X number of dollars than X number of dollars. And so quarterly reporting would be fine. That would spread that burden out. But here again, that one employee could certainly handle that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
The ordinance is once a year. That's that.
Mm-hmm. So you touched a little bit on this, but if you can just clarify that, will the sales tax be collected on all internet sales, such if you purchase something from Amazon or other service providers?
Yes, we've contacted Amazon. I buy a lot of car parts, and every time I buy something from Tennessee or whatever, well, I'll have to add the sales tax. They go, whoops, I see your zip code does not have sales tax. But this, if we pass this and the citizens voted in, then that automatically will have to send out to those companies, and it would go on their database that 975262728 is does have a 3% sales tax, and they will collect that and mail it in, just like they do for. And what didn't seem like it was a like an ASCAP. Oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? It was very just routine addition to their deal. I think that's very important because if wood didn't happen that way, that would really put our merchants at a disadvantage because it would encourage internet sales. I think a lot of people got used to internet sales during the COVID thing because it was delivered right to their door, and that and I can see where that happened, and a lot of people just started staying with that. But at least you can know that you're not at a disadvantage from that point of it. That internet sales will definitely be included in that. Yes.
Great, thank you. And just for the public that are watching, if you would like to ask a question, you can put it in the comment box. And if we have time at the end, we'll take questions from the audience. So the next question is, why has the county not pursued getting tax dollars from Salem for cannabis or marijuana taxes? And can you explain that process?
We have, and the last thing I want to be is hand to mouth from Salem. To be honest with you, I'd like to take care of this problem ourselves, but we were receiving a certain amount of dollars from Salem. Ballot Measure 110 passed, and it drastically reduced the amount of money that we received to the tune of about 76% of the tax monies we were receiving. Now we're deferred over into treatment and other things. In what I kind of perceive as a shell game. Commissioner DeYoung and I have both testified in Salem together and try with Council Hicks to try and lobby for an increase in taxes that Josephine County would receive. And we were kicked in the teeth. And that's basically how that ended. And that's really kind of where we're at.
Great, thank you. And so if you guys can kind of explain this, the Grants Pass City Council has some language in the ordinance that they would reduce the property tax. Can you talk about that and how much they would reduce it to?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that one. One of the things that we'll have to go back up the page to the $8 million that the city of Grants Pass would get. Now they had to adjust their budget last year, $2 million additional out of their general fund, and we're looking for an area with which to shore that up for city law enforcement. If this gave them $8 million, that takes care of that $2 million and adds $6 million. It just using these round figures now, and it could be higher than that, it could be lower than that, but it's certainly going to be more than what they're getting right now. But if they could do that, their annual the $1.79 levy that they have, law enforcement, public safety law enforcement, it's law enforcement levy, and it's $1.79. If you were to give them $8 million, that could almost, I guess, in the long run, wipe it out. But I would not suggest that. I would suggest, I think taking a dollar off. They've agreed to take their levy from $1.79 down to 79 cents, which gives $1 per 1,000 tax relief for the people inside the incorporated city of Grants Pass. The city of Cave Junction can't do that because they don't have a levy to reduce out there, and so therefore they can't do it. And the county, we can't take our levy down because we're at 93 cents and 58 added together. That's all we have. So basically in the county, we can't do that, but the city will see some pretty substantial funding coming in for their law enforcement thing. Another thing that does is I think that would free up money to go back into their general fund to be used for other purposes, which may include fire. But this levy is strictly, or this property tax or sales tax, excuse me, goes strictly to law enforcement. It does not include the fire element, but I think the savings that they would get in their budget can go back into the general fund because that's where it comes from in the first place to be used for other things. But that's how it works out. And they did finally decide, and the mayor and everybody signed on it. I think, I don't know what the vote was on that. To refer to 7-1. What was it?
5-3.
5-3. And then that they would actually put in the explanatory statement in the ballot, when the ballots come out, and the explanatory statement and in the voters pamphlet, the actual amount that they are going to reduce their levy, which I think that's a pretty strong sales feature too for the people in the city of Grants Pass, because they got to admit, I know a lot of people have a lot of businesses that pay a lot of property tax too, and that will be rolled back $1 a thousand. So that's pretty substantial for all the citizens inside the city of Grants Pass that pay property tax, and businesses alike.
Full disclosure, they are I don't know that they set exactly a dollar amount, but they basically promised to do that based upon the figures and the calculation and the revenue they received. So that, because they obviously they don't want to stick to a specific number, because if they go under that in the revenue they're going to gain from the sales tax, that puts them in a pickle. So I totally understand that, but they have given, they have said they will do that.
I think they do mention in here somewhere there at the last 11th hour, they came in and said that they would reduce it, but I'll see if I can find it while we're talking here. So let's continue on.
All right, great. Thank you. So some clarification, because there's also a jail levy for all the funds you'll be collecting for the seasonal sales tax. Will that mostly go to patrol, and will any go to the jail?
The jail is funded with 93 cents per thousand. The city pays that, county pays that, Cape Junction pays that. And so that's set in the form of a levy. So no, I do not anticipate any of the sales tax revenue going to our corrections division. It strictly would be for law enforcement.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that. Is the county still considering other funding options for law enforcement?
I was asked that question yesterday. I was asked that question by two ladies that came in my office. They said, well, Commissioner DeYoung, what's your plan B? And I just looked at them and said, you know what, ladies, I am fresh out of plan Bs. I've been almost 8 years at the city council looking for permanent, stable funding for law enforcement over there for 8 years, almost 8 years. And I've been almost 6 years here doing the exact same thing. And, every time we try to, we throw something out there, this much per thousand on a property tax, and then, nope, that's too much. So you drop off 12 cents and then it's okay. And back and forth. That is not, and they're all under levies that the levies, truthfully, that's not, if your job is betting on that levy is not as stable as you would like it to be. Whereas this right here is taking in all the whole county, all law enforcement for all citizens in Josephine County and the people that visit here. We're trying to keep everybody safe at once. So do I have a plan B? Probably. I don't have a plan B, to be quite honest with you. And I look at this thing here, the timing also is very critical on this, because if this doesn't pass in November, we are down to the 11:30 hour. There's only one more bite at the apple, and that's in May of 2023. And that is beyond when the sheriff needs to pass out 60-day notices for the few remaining deputies he'll have.
And I tell you, and let me add on to that, I'll tell you, when this fiscal kind of cliff started looming and the conversation started happening, in the last 4 months, I've lost 5 deputies that I have hired within the last 5 years. And they've gone to the city of Grants Pass and Jackson County Sheriff's Office and Oregon State Police, recruitment and retention is very difficult when as we combat this every 3-year tax levy or the taxing district, and that without stabilized funding, it makes it very, very difficult for us to recruit and obviously, as seen, retain individuals, which is why the permanent stabilized funding is so very important. I do want to add something that's maybe kind of on the sidebar and maybe not a question, but I'm very passionate about my position. I'm very passionate about providing a law enforcement professional public safety service to our citizens of all of Josephine County, Grants Pass included, and Cape Junction. But something I think people need to remember is that we are a community. And as I stated in the opening ceremony for the 4-H auction, we need to provide something to our youth, and that's hope. And they need to feel safe. They need to feel secure. We all know what's going on in the United States of America with Uvalde and Columbine in the past 20 years ago, and the Parkland shooting. Our schools, they're in a predicament, and the money's not there to build all brand new schools so we can secure them 100% properly. But we can't forget our kids, and this would have a major impact on their safety. And so I just want to know, I know it wasn't a question, but I wanted to throw that in there because it is very important to me, first and foremost, as Sheriff of Josephine County, that I provide the best level of safety and security that I can to our educators and our children.
And Josie, if I could, I want to item E, where you ask about the $1,000 or the $1 off. Item E in the ordinance says, upon passage of the LERAT, the Grants Pass City Council shall reduce the property tax levy for law enforcement for all city citizens subject to the levy from $1.79 to 79 cents per thousand of assessed value. And it says such levy will take effect in the following budget cycle or any other time to be determined by the city council. So that's back on them, but they have agreed to take off $1 a thousand. It's in the ordinance. So that's pretty solid there. The city council shall retain the discretion to make any necessary budgetary adjustments to their budgets to ensure the appropriate city law enforcement funding. So they're still in charge of their budget, which is great, but they will reduce it for a dollar.
Thank you, Commissioner. I stand corrected.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, Mayor Sarah Bristol also confirmed in the comment box. So
thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, great. So you guys kind of already said that there is no plan B, but what will happen if this sales tax does not pass on the November ballot?
I'm in trouble. You take that one.
I'm in trouble. Josie, I don't know what I can't. I don't like to campaign on fear. I don't like to campaign on making people scared of what potentially could be. But the facts are the facts, and we're going to be putting out a facts sheet of later on of what this can do and what could potentially happen. For my calculations, being over $5.5 million short, maybe more in the next budget cycle, I anticipate the Josephine County Sheriff's Office going back to 2012 and worse. I anticipate looking at the funding loss that we'll have, the gap, that there will not be a patrol division. Obviously not a detectives division, because there isn't one now with the latest reductions we just had.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that. So also in the comments, there was some more discussion about the nonprofit activity. So we'll get some clarification on that and circle back with everyone. So those are actually all the questions we have. I'm going to open it up to both of you for closing comments. Anything about the tax you would like to add?
Sheriff?
I think it's kind of long time overdue. Josephine County is not a big property tax county. Many people don't appreciate that, and don't want that, which is really most of the other options in the form of a district or a levy. And the levy is not stable. It's 3 or 5 years, and then you got to go for it again, and again that affects my recruitment and retention. Everybody pays on this one. Everybody pays. Everybody gets a piece of the pie. I don't necessarily think that just one demographic should be responsible for overall public safety. The people that come in from out of the area, California, Washington, anywhere traveling through, they're paying sales taxes in their communities. I don't think this is going to be a huge hit to them. Pirating is a huge issue that people have concerns with. It's altogether possible that there could be some, but I can tell you this: I do believe that Josephine County is going to be kind of the tip of the iceberg and the tip of the spear here. I know that Curry County is looking at putting this type of issue on the ballot in not November, but in May of next year, according to one of their commissioners in his statements. I know Commissioner DeYoung and I have spoken with Commissioners Dotterer down there in Jackson County and Sheriff Sickler down there. They desperately need a jail, yet they have absolutely no funding stream for it. They tried to put it on a property tax and were destroyed. And their response was, for us when we met with them, was not yet. We want to see how it goes. So I like to think that Josephine County can lead from the front, and I think you're going to find that people will follow, other communities will follow. And again, I'd like to see everybody pay. I've campaigned on that for forever, 8 years ago, 4 years ago, and I'm still there. I really would not like to have it on just the property owners' backs to support everybody else that visits and lives in this community.
Yeah, and going back, I've been working on this particular concept for a number of years, and I work with it and change it, and just getting public feedback from the pack of dogs I run with. I know it's going to be a change, and it's going to be a pretty significant change. I was in business for 51 years, somewhere along in there, and I know the struggles that a small business has, and I prefer to call them independent businesses rather than small business. A business in your family is no small item. It's it. And you're a certain amount of independence that goes along with that. But I honest to goodness, I've been here my whole life, and I voted against sales tax statewide in Oregon more times than I can even think of. Anytime it came up, my parents did the same thing. I don't think you'll ever get a statewide sales tax because the people in Multnomah County and the northern along the Columbia get a tremendous amount of commerce from across the river in Washington, and they also have the population centers up there, so I doubt if it'll ever happen. So the next step up is county by county, and one of the things when I started in on this, what would the state think about it? And we asked the state on a Department of Revenue. We don't have anything to do with it. We're not prepared, and so therefore we don't want to collect your tax and then send it back and so on and so forth, which I was grateful to hear that, because it doesn't start this another level of government. But I'm going to go back to something that I was brought to my mind the other day, and it was, when we passed the levy, I said, we get very few victories when you're sitting in the county commissioner seat or a city council seat or any of the elected sheriff. You're his elected official. Get very few victories when you're at this, and this person said, we had a huge victory with the jail levy. I said, yeah, that was a victory. I said it barely squeaked by the first time, but it was pretty good margin, pretty overwhelming margin the second time. And I said, why would you think that? And this person said, well, because the sheriff you guys did exactly what you said you were going to do with the money. Well, I'm here to tell you that hit home pretty solid, because guess what? Same sheriff, same commissioner coming to you again with the promise that we are going to do with the money what we say we're going to do with the money. And you can throw all of the rhetoric about, they always say that, but they never do that. When this becomes an ordinance and goes on the ballot, it then is kind of out of our hands. It becomes the property of the Secretary of State to enforce what we said we were going to do and what you voted on. So I like that. I like that concept a lot, because we change here a possibility of every 2 years, having a change in these seats up here. I want something to carry on with the momentum. And I think after a couple of years of seeing what this actually does and what we intend to do with the money, I think you're going to see a surprising change in the outlook and the way Josephine County looks to other areas and to people that potentially want to visit here and see our beautiful county and buy our products and stay in our community. I think they need to have a reasonable expectation that they're being protected while they're here from the bad elements that the sheriff is working real hard to drive out of our community. If it goes backwards, I don't even want to wake up screaming in the middle of the night thinking about how that would look. But I have trust in our sheriff. I've known this man for years. And I'll tell you what, I trust in him and what he says. He's done everything he said he's going to do. Keeps me well informed. I'm liaison to the sheriff's department. I know what his budget's all about. I know where his money comes from, and I know where it's not coming from. So we would urge, I know the chamber put out a letter right off the bat that you weren't quite in favor of this, and I understand this is the sticker shock of sales tax is really a hard thing to bite. But I hope, in kicking this back and forth and around in the legal side of it and through LC, Legislative Council at state level, and with all the effort we put into it, I'm hoping that we have made a fairly decent case for you to, say, you know what, I think that we really do need the expectation of adequate law enforcement when people come to visit here. And those people, let's face it, we're a tourist community, and who better to help pay the bills than the tourists as they come through. And I know when I travel, I don't bellyache about South Orange County, and they've got some pretty high property or sales taxes down there. But I know that the money is going somewhere for the public good. And here it's going directly to law enforcement. And I would like to encourage all you members of the Chamber of Commerce to really dig down deep. And like I say, I think that one of the things, Josie, I think it would be really great there. I know there are trainings available and help available to make this transition. And I think that's where the chamber would land and really help out there. If this is going to get voted in by the public, I think you've got adequate time to really help your constituents and your members get through this and help us make a better community for all. I urge everybody, and I'm passionate about this as the sheriff is, as you can tell. So, we really appreciate it. I want to tell you, I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yes.
You come before you right now. It sounded, I'm excited about the way you're going to be putting this out to the public. This sounds like a great deal. Sheriff, we may want to use this for some other stuff coming down the tube, for the public. So, Josie, you're doing a great job over there, and to all your members, we're here to serve you. And I know this maybe sound like we're working against you, but to be honest with you, we're trying to make a better place for all of us so we can all prosper. Thank you very much for allowing us to speak.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Commissioner DeYoung and Sheriff Daniel. We really appreciate you taking the time today. This was very informative, and also all your hard work on this. I know both of you have spent countless hours working on this, so we do really appreciate that.
Well, I just want to extend it to your members and anybody out in the public. If you've got some questions about this, get a hold of any of the Board of County Commissioners or the sheriff. We'll be glad to sit down and go through how this actually what it really means, because there's some legal speak in here, but you'll find in the voters pamphlet it will be reduced into my language that I can understand, thank goodness. And I think there's only so many words can be put in there, but like I say, I'm passionate about this. I hope we can all group together for once. And this is really what really opens my eyes and gives me hope for the future. I think this is the first time that the city and the county have worked together for all of the citizens of Josephine County and the people that are visiting us. I think this is a first. It's certainly a first in my 14 years that I've been here in this capacity. And kudos to the city council and the mayor and Augustus Ogu over there, their city attorney, and to Wally Hicks. They've been bombarded trying to get this thing sorted out and in time to be on this ballot, because this is pivotal in November. for a whole host of reasons. That whole ballot is going to be pivotal. Don't take that ballot lightly this time, for sure. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And this recording will be available on our YouTube channel. We will be sharing the full ordinance with all of the chamber members. So make sure that you stay informed because this will be on the November ballot. And I appreciate all of you joining us today, and have a wonderful day.